So last week, EA got themselves under fire, and boy did they not only get ratioed, but they created quite a stir on social media. And it really makes you have to ask the question, who is running this social media account? Because from the tweet that we're about to look at today, it seems as if the person who's behind the social media account on Electronic Arts on Twitter really doesn't know the history of EA, much less the reputation they have earned in the past, much less the companies that they have bought out and have made single-player games. They tweeted out this: they're a 10, but they only like playing single-player games. Now, I don't know if you've seen on social media recently, but this has been a really big trend all over on Facebook, on Twitter, on, all the social medias, where people say they're a 10, but they only like this. So it's pretty much a downside. So essentially what they're doing here is they're a 10, they're really, really good, but they only like playing single-player games, which is a negative thing. But they're essentially insulting people who enjoy single-player games. Now, obviously, EA has built a very negative reputation over the many, many years of buying out companies and just creating havoc in any company that they buy, forcing people to work really bad hours, allegedly. The work environment has not always been the best place, according to a lot of folks who have worked there, but this tweet created a lot of Jimmy's rustled, if you know what I'm saying. 17,000 quote tweets. That's a lot. You can just take a few seconds and scroll into the replies of the actual tweet, and you'll see that, well, they are really almost to, like this guy here, Vince, ratio, almost 24,000 likes, like holy moly, facepalm emoji. Elena Pierce, EA, you've all been a solid 3 since 2007. What the fuck are you on about? The Ackman replies, this you, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is, the new Star Wars game that is coming out later this year, but also a couple years back we had Star Wars Fallen Order, which was an amazing single-player Star Wars game. And it's just a very weird thing to tweet out, putting down single-player games, because I know a lot of people, myself included, I like single-player games. Not everything has to be multiplayer with tons and tons of microtransactions. But EA has had quite a past stir of that with the Star Wars Battlefront franchise, with being able to buy things and having an upper advantage simply by paying money, which I think is really a disgrace to gaming as a whole. Later that evening, however, Electronic Arts quote tweeted their own tweet, which got heavily ratioed, and said, roast well deserved. We will take this L because playing single-player games actually makes them an 11. So they're pretty much backpedaling, rolling back, and saying, yeah, we may have gotten this one wrong. So if they play single-player games, they get +1 point. For those of you who don't know, in 2012, EA made over $4 billion, and just last year, EA made nearly $7 billion. So to say that they make a lot of money is an understatement. But EA is primarily known for their multiplayer live services like FIFA, Madden, and Apex Legends, and they really utilize these games to monetize them through microtransactions, shops, season passes, loot boxes, etc. Apex Legends has been guilty of this. I have put a lot of money over the last few years into Apex Legends. I don't really play it much anymore, but back in the day, I contributed to this. And I'm not necessarily always against microtransactions. But something interesting is this guy named Zach Mungback. I'm not sure who this guy is, but he replied with a quote tweet, this is the company that shut down my studio and laid off 100 great developers because we were making single-player games. The irony of this, also, if you break a game's rating scores from a 10-point scale, most EA games are a solid 6 or 7. Not because the developers are bad, but because EA, the corporation, forces them to rush games out. EA corporation leadership wouldn't know what a 10 looks like in terms of a video game. And this is not wrong. Games made by EA themselves are really not that good. I'm not sure how many of you guys are aware of Battlefield 2042, but I myself have been playing Battlefield from the early 2000s. It's one of my favorite video game franchises of all times. However, the new Battlefield 2042 is a great example of EA missing the mark and literally hiring an entire new development team to create this game that have no understanding of the Battlefield franchise as a whole and the game itself. The Battlefield franchise is a very unique title of games that has created a gaming history in a lot of communities. and it's some of the best first-person shooter multiplayer games ever made, in my opinion. Battlefield 2042 is barely even breaking 7,000 players at this rate, and you know, the whole game was advertised as a 100-player multiplayer. They downsized that now to 64-player multiplayer because hardly anybody's playing the game, because the game just wasn't that good. And this is coming from somebody who loves Battlefield, who's invested almost 500 hours in every Battlefield game, with the exception of this new title, 2042. It's just a bad game. There's nobody on the original development team at DICE that created the previous Battlefield games, which is how you really have a good quality game like Bad Company 2, is by having the original people who created the game and made it the masterpiece that it is, instead of hiring new people who don't know what the fuck they're doing. They think that they can just slap a label on a game like Battlefield and it's going to make billions and billions of dollars, when it's been proven time and time again, if you don't hire the right people to make a game, it's going to suffer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that EA has actually shut down multiple different studios. Game developers making something, they come in, buy the company, basically lay everybody off and say, hey, we're going to cancel your game that you were working on. Visceral Games was one example of this. They were primarily known for making the Dead Space games. They scrapped the company because it didn't meet certain expectations in their sales market. Apparently, Visceral Games was working on a Star Wars game. They were working on multiple different games, and then in 2017, EA scrapped them because they didn't make them enough money. Star Wars Battlefront 2, we had pay-to-win loot boxes. This was a huge controversy, which they eventually rolled back on, and the game's actually pretty fun now. But EA over the years has had so much scrutiny because they add these exploitative game mechanics, that just bring in money, rather than focus on a good gaming experience where they just continue to make billions and billions every single year. Does anybody remember the game Anthem? Yeah, I tried that. It was not very good. It was apparently going to be this really a crazy single-player RPG game. BioWare really tried to, you know, try a live service with that game, and ultimately it just failed. Do I need to remind you guys that at one point EA was rated, I think it was 2014, 2013, was rated one of the worst companies in America. And then look, I'm not into The Sims, but The Sims used to be like you could just play offline. Now Sims 4 is only an online game specifically. There's been allegations of crazy overtime, there's been discrimination, workplace misconduct, and obviously I'm not going to go into all of these. I just feel like a lot of companies, Ubisoft, even Square Enix, they're really not... I feel like just these companies are coming along, they want to make money, so they put out a half-assed product. They hire people running their social media accounts that don't know what the fuck they're actually doing. These tweets, these interactions that EA tweeted out just shows that who's their PR team? You have one of the most hated gaming companies out there, and they occasionally remind us, hey, this is why we hate you, because you tweet stupid shit like this. Now, I do want to whore out one game that is fantastic, that was made by Respawn. See, EA published the game, so Respawn is part of EA, but Star Wars Fallen Order is a fantastic video game. I think the original Dragon Age is still really loved by a large community. Even Titanfalls 2, the single player was really, really fun. The little accomplishments they do have, they always seem to undermine themselves. Single player games don't suck, and to allude to the fact that they do is just poor taste, and quite frankly, they deserved all the backlash they got. Anyways, what do you guys think? Did EA go out of line with this? Are they just, is there PR people behind their social media? Is that stupid not to know their own, you know, controversial history of their failures of being one of the most hated companies in America? You tell me. Leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching. All my socials will link down below. Discord link down below. Join my Discord if you want to be in a gameplay video randomly, as I record quite frequently during the week.